Hey, we're your hosts.
I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Jonathan.
And we believe that one of the most valuable gifts you can give to yourself is the gift of wholeness through integrating all aspects of what it means to be human.
And in this podcast, we're bringing you insight, information, and inspiration to move from a stressful to stress-free life.
Your journey to becoming even healthier and happier starts right now.
Welcome to Wellness Theory, the podcast.
You are in for a treat today. Nothing lights us up more than recording interviews with our clients. We get the honor of working with incredible people in our coaching practice, and seeing their whole journey from start to finish is something that we'll never take for granted. It literally gets us out of bed every morning and is why the Wellness Theory has become what it is today and has allowed us to win awards and continue serving our community to be well in ways that last. And today's guest is an amazing human being and inspiring in so many ways. And we're lucky enough to have her join us today to share her story over the last 18 months, moving from purposelessness and burnout to passion and high performance. She shares the ebbs and flows of what it looks like to step up and have the courage to do the inner work needed to be truly happy, energized and connected to life, so that she can be a force for good for herself, her loved ones and society. No doubt you'll be inspired by Alya as much as we are. Enjoy this episode.
So welcome to the show, Alya. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me, and I'm really happy to be here with you today.
I'm really excited to have this conversation today with the camera on and it being recorded for people to come and hear about your story and what it is you've been up to and kind of how our paths have crossed over the last year and a bit. Before we jump into all of that though, do you want to give our listeners a bit of a background as to like, who are you and why are we here today?
Okay. So my name is Alya Al Naqbi, and I'm a construction project manager for the energy sector, pertaining oil and gas and renewables. And this is, typically how I would introduce myself in the corporate world, or basically, the matrix. However, in reality, my name is Alya, and I'm just a curious spirit exploring the world and participating towards understanding our mission on this lovely planet. I love volunteering, and I love specifically volunteering in providing access to clean water, energy, shelter, education, and medicine.
I love that. I love that intro. I love the whole unplugging from the matrix and telling us who you really are. I love that so much. That's obviously just a small description of what you're all about. I mean, you missed out there very humbly. You were Energy Woman of the Year for 2022 as well, right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, so lots of success from a professional standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint. So I'd love for you to share, Alya, for our listeners, like, what was your life like, let's say, maybe about 18 months ago, before our paths crossed? So let our listeners have a bit of background on why we have made it to having this conversation today.
Of course. Where to begin? So, like everyone else, it all starts with the environment you first explore as a child, which is basically home. And for me, I was raised in a family that has, a high number of niche achievements. I was always reminded how my mother's uncle was, the first degree holder in the Arabian Peninsula. Therefore, higher education was not even, was a non-negotiable term for us. How my father negotiated, the UNESCO back in 1998 on behalf of the Emirate of Sharjah, and, which led to, the Sharjah being awarded capital of the Arabian culture. How my mother is one of a kind, teacher, all of my aunts are doctors, etc., etc., etc. And imagine being, in this environment, you can imagine how I would define purpose. I would always dream big. In fact, sky was only the baseline of my beginnings. But with this way of conditioning, there was one wrongful understanding, which was actually, the subconsciously, I always thought that, the natural result of achieving big milestones was to be appreciated and praised. And, I expected that from my parents first, and from my community second. And I believe that this is what I have to live for. Work very hard in the areas defined by the community as niche and hard to study, or accomplish. Become successful, and you'll feel satisfied and live happily ever after. Um, and continuing on this, mythology, I strived to do the unusual. Studied in a new major in engineering at the time. Worked in an unusual and harsh work environment for 50 to 60 hours per week, building and commissioning offshore platforms, pipelines, barges, first of its kind projects in the Middle East. I even, as you mentioned, I won the Middle East Energy Woman of the Year. The problem was I never received the appreciation I expected. And on the contrary, at some point I was fought, perhaps even abused, not given the opportunities in ways no one can even imagine. And I couldn't tolerate it. Although as you know, I'm a very resilient human being. I fought back for years, thinking that maybe because of their unconscious bias, they find it hard to believe that I can lead multi-million projects by myself. So I mean, not by myself, but managing a team. So I thought that I need to I need to prove them wrong, and I need to work even harder. But the result was that I was fought even, viciously harder, which contradicts the beliefs I grew up with. I thought, I was so confused. I was very disappointed. I eventually even, became truly broken and have lost purpose in life. To me, I thought that, I followed the formula to the T. Success was supposed to be inevitable. Then what went wrong? I remember there were many, many nights where I was suffering, to sleep. I was weeping, trying to understand, why is this happening to me? I have done nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. In terms of, professionally, I never hurt a soul, even, in terms of, my teammates. And I went even the extra mile to build my career. I mean, no one is perfection. This is why I stress on, professionally. So the big question is that eventually came up: why am I alive on this planet? If this was not my purpose, then what is my purpose? I stayed at the lowest point of my life for a while. It became kind of a comfortable zone for me. I go to work, I accomplish more than anyone else, get beaten metaphorically and emotionally, go back the next day to do the same. And eventually, I got depressed, gained a lot of weight with it. But you know what? I never took it for, I never accepted it. I felt I was curious, because of maybe my resilient nature, I knew that it was wrong. So eventually, I decided that I will never accept it. And when I decided that, I need to do something about it. This is not my story. This is not how it ends. This is where my path crossed with the wellness theory.
Awesome. So I want to touch on what you said there. You asked that question is why, pretty much why you're here. What is your purpose for you? What was going through your mind at that point when you were asking yourself that question? Like, what was coming up for you at that point when you started asking yourself that question?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And that was shocking for me, because I always knew what's next. Since I could even remember, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, I always knew, I always had a plan. I always had this drawing in my head that I will become this person and I will do this. And then, life will become like that. And then, I had this story according to what I saw in my parents or in my family. So when I eventually landed on that question, I just had nothing in my mind, and that freaked me out. I was too scared that, oh my God, what am I doing? Is this my life? I can't live without a purpose.
It's so interesting. Like everything you shared there, even in your previous comments as well, in terms of like what you were experiencing, it strongly resembles burnout, right? And when we have that immense pressure that's come from our past and our conditioning and society as to we have to achieve a certain amount, or we end up having that kind of if then mentality. If I then achieve this, then I'll get this, or I'll experience that. And when that becomes fulfilling and we realize, okay, perhaps that's not maybe the healthiest way to be thinking about things, it makes us question, right? And when we question things and we come up stumped, right? Because you're an extremely intelligent person, right? You're somebody who actually has really great self-awareness as well. And you would think, logically, in theory, textbook, okay, well, great intelligence and great self-awareness, we have this ability to figure things out. And I say we, because this symbolizes very much kind of what I experienced as well. And it was really scary. It was like, oh my God, like what is this? Like it's almost you end up in no man's land. And it's like, okay, well what now? Like you said, and if there isn't a kind of a path there, a clear path, it can actually become very dark. So I'd love for you to perhaps share with our listeners, because I know for sure that we're not alone in what we've experienced, is what was you feeling? I know you've kind of touched upon it there, but what was you feeling, and what effect was that having on all of the other areas of your life?
Yes. So I was at the lowest point of my life. I tried a lot of remedies, including, energy and spiritual healing for a couple of years. Though it works for many people, my heart was so deep. And I was, as you said, I was too smart to believe in something without questioning its origins. Even, my previous healer was was always, annoyed of the amount of questions I used to ask her. My challenges were all stemming from one belief. The formula I grew up with: work very hard in a niche field and success will be inevitable. Though nothing is wrong with this formula, and it worked really for a while, but suddenly I found myself among a different crowd. I was around a new group of people with different values and interests than the ones that I'm used to. Simply my values just didn't sit well with them. That was the problem.
Okay, and that obviously then affected friendships, relationships, which has
everything,
belonging, and then your own self-esteem, all those kinds of things, right?
Yes.
So when we crossed paths at obviously that time of your life, and you made that decision to go on this journey, what were your biggest fears, or what reservations did you have about starting this journey? Like what do you think would happen?
Yeah. Okay. I remember I had suspicions, whether it would work or not. I remember I had already tried almost everything, conventional and non-conventional, the remedies I spoke about before. And, my biggest fear was that, this would not work. This wouldn't be able to help me get out of that low vibrational energy that you guys won't be able to help me find my purpose again. Of course, now I know it is a low vibrational energy because, Jonathan, you kept telling me, I thought that when I started, I thought that, this is just negative energy. No, it's called low vibrational energy. And I knew that I didn't like it. And I knew that this wasn't me. I remember even sharing this fear with you, Charlotte. I remember asking you, maybe with a little bit of sarcasm. I don't know if you noticed it or not. I was like, how will it work? But you were confident. You just, replied to me. You didn't give me promises. You just, replied to me in a poker face. No, it would work. And of course, I couldn't, surrender for this, for this answer. And I asked you, how will you do it? So you just explained to me the process of our 40 one-to-one sessions. And it just made sense to me because it goes back to where it all started, and conditioning.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because I know you said there's like you would ask questions maybe with a bit of sarcasm, and I think it was more like cynicism in a way as well. It's like you're just a bit skeptical, a bit of a skeptic, and I think that's actually the healthiest way move into something new sometimes is to have that layer of curiosity and almost disbelief, because then you really start to approach things in a way in which you can start to open in ways that perhaps we didn't know we could before. And I think that's really, really important, because a lot of times people work with coaches or they do certain programs, and sometimes it's not very structured. So one of the things obviously that we like to do with wellness theory is have that solid structure. You mentioned like 40 sessions there. So for anyone listening that's not aware, essentially our 12-month program is 40 sessions across a 1-year coaching commitment. And we go through 4 very distinct phases where we go through a discovery process to really dig in and see what's happening. We go through a reset phase where we actually start to let go of perhaps some of the things that didn't serve us, whether that be emotions, thoughts, ideas, beliefs, lifestyle, situations, these kinds of things. Then we move into an alignment phase, which is where we then bring together, okay, well, who are we really, and where does that fit into our life? What do we value, and how can we actually integrate this in a real life practical way? And then obviously that future proofing stage where we obviously make sure you've got everything you need moving forwards. And I think sometimes, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, sometimes having that clear process, it creates that level of like one understanding, and that suddenly there is a path available, especially when we feel like there wasn't one at the beginning. But also we like to think it's quite logical as well. Like the way we actually behave as human beings is like, we need to go through these steps in order to be able to let go and release and grow and expand and build upon everything. So I really love to know your thoughts on that.
Exactly, because if you guys came to me and told me, okay, we're going to work for a whole year, but you don't have the roadmap, then why would I give you 365 days of my life? I need to know. I need to know, because I already wasted a lot of 365s before, and I was at a point that, okay, this should work. It has to work. So I need to choose a very people that know what they're doing, people that are structured, people that have tried this, people that have gone through this themselves. And I was really comfortable when you explained to me the process, because if you didn't, I wouldn't have continued.
That's a fair point.
It's so important that no matter what you do, and no matter what it's spiritual practices, self-development, whatever, you've got to have some type of process to follow, and that process can be the same concept for everyone, but how people then go through that process and on that journey will be different for every single person. But like you said, if you don't have a process to follow, you're kind of like flying blind. Like you're just going through a session thinking, okay, let's see what happens today. Come to the next day, okay, let's do this and see what happens. Like there's no clarity around it. There's no progression on what you're doing. And I think for anyone listening, is if you're considering seeking out help, is make sure that you do find a process that works, that feels right for you as well. And I think that's also key, is like you said, is trusting in, obviously your trust in us to be able to help you go through that journey and understand what you're going through. And I think that's key as well, is whoever you do seek help from, not only do they need to have that process, but you've got to feel that trust as well. You've got to have that trust in the people that you're asking help from, and which is where that cynicism comes in a bit as well, is when you start questioning things and start to be more curious. It helps you to build that trust as well, instead of just blindly going, okay, do whatever you want. Let's see what happens. It's like, I need help. So you actually take it. You need help. You need that structure. You need that process. You need that someone to be there to guide you. But at the same time, you question it as well, because that's the key as well. Is questioning everything. Don't just blindly believe everything you hear. It's question it, because like you said, when you questioned it, Charlie gave you a very clear, very concise kind of answer, which made you feel at ease and feel calm about it.
That's one of my favorite.
Exactly.
Alya, that's one of my favorite things about you throughout this whole process was the questions you asked. I love a little bit of skepticism, because it's really good, because you go even deeper than perhaps you would before, right? And so I think that's actually one of your biggest superpowers as well, not just in the beginning, but throughout the whole coaching process. It's funny actually, you introduce yourself as a curious person, right, as well, so that's definitely a common theme.
I am. You can't imagine, how ChatGPT is now, I'm just using it for everything, for every question. I ditched Google now, and I'm going to that platform, and I think it's fulfilling that curious part in me. And I would like to, I would like to actually follow up on what Jonathan said about my past experience, because I did that. I just went blindly and trusted someone. Apparently, she was powerful. She knew what she was doing, but she didn't have a roadmap, and it was one of her traits. She didn't want to have a plan. She wanted to. She's just a free spirit. But that didn't work well with me. So I reiterate that, you need to choose someone that fits your way of thinking, your way of life. There are others who actually like the way my previous healer was dealing with, and no one is right or wrong. You just need to choose what fits you.
Yeah,
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure. I would love to know then, because you've obviously had this experience before as well. So during your journey with us, what surprised you the most throughout your journey?
Okay, so for me, it was the timeline paradigm, including past life regression. For me, it was mind blowing, including also the alchemy flow. I keep saying always that the alchemy flow has this instant result on me. I never thought that it would work, especially with my resilient consciousness. And including, in addition to that, the perfect combination of you both, the awakening coaching, the use of quantum linguistics, metaphysical wellness, and the holistic view. The whole package was just perfect.
Awesome. So for anyone listening that might have just heard some words in there and just be like, well, what is that? Let's talk a little bit about the timeline experience that you had. So for anyone listening, timeline paradigm techniques essentially is a NLP technique that helps us to let go of emotions, and it helps us to really change and shift the way that we believe certain thoughts and the way we actually perceive our past experiences. And it also allows us to then access certain information that perhaps we didn't have access to before, that can help and serve us kind of from that moment and then obviously in the future. How would you describe timeline based on your experience though, Alya?
I always thought that in order for you to go through this experience, you need to be under the effect of psychedelics. But I never thought that with our consciousness, we can actually reach a state where we can know if a trauma started, in a previous life and in a current life, or at birth. And I remember even telling you before you started, I was telling you, I just don't believe in previous lives. It just contradicts with my religion. It contradicts with so many things. I can't understand that, can someone really live more than one life? And then you said, yeah, I had the same thing. And then we started. And when you asked me about certain emotions when it started, the first answer that came into my mind, that it started at a past life. There were so many questions marks on my head, but I just continued because I was already there in the zone. And then you asked me how many lives did I live, and I told you the first number that came in my head, and I still believe that number was correct. So it just works. I have no idea. It feels magical, and it feels right. It feels the right answer at that moment, but I have no idea how.
Do you have any kind of thoughts or awareness as to how that experience has helped you, just from going through that technique? And then John will jump in and obviously talk a bit more about the alchemy, but can you give almost like a day-to-day or kind of practical experience of how that's actually helped by revisiting those times and having this new awareness?
Okay, I remember I was in the shoes of one of my ancestors, someone who of course who I have never met, and seeing the incidents that affected him, it just made sense about so many things happening in my life right now. I am still manifesting something that hasn't been resolved at the time, and when I went back, I and I confronted that situation, it just, it didn't only make sense. I accepted it, and I don't recall that the things that were manifesting as a result of that incident have manifested after, I accepted it, after I have faced it on his behalf.
Nice. So I'd love to kind of now touch on what you mentioned about the alchemy flow. So for anyone who's listening who kind of heard those words and so what does that even mean? So it's the alchemy flow is part of a modality we use in coaching called quantum flow. So quantum flow in essence is it's a basically powerful modality that incorporates breath work, sound, movement, meditation, visualization, quantum linguistics to really help you to bring balance to your energetic field, to your energetic body, which at that point helps you to actually start to tap into your, what we call the quantum reality without going too deep, which basically is the reality that helps you to manifest what you want in life. Like when you say this, how you think, how you feel, what you do, like it attracts into your life. It's that same thing. It all comes back to energy. And alchemy, I think, like we discussed this already, the reason you love it so much is alchemy is about transforming and transmuting blocked energy stuff, energy that's holding us back from being who we are. And when it gets flowing, we get this feeling of freedom, of lightness, of that this energetic feeling that helps us to bring ourselves back into balance, and it helps us to become more focused, more attentive, more concentrated on what it is that we want and who we're being. So I don't doubt for a second that alchemy was your favorite part, and I know why, based on obviously this journey we've gone through with you. But I'd love to know from your opinion what you feel quantum flow is for you, and what do you feel it's done for your life?
Yes. So basically, as you said, when I go to work and I face all of these unpleasant incidents, and of course, where I work, even the location of my office is not ideal for a typical human being. I come back with so many, I don't know, mixed feelings. I feel that just the blockage within me. And my mood is just off. And I feel that this is something that is not going to help me live the life I wanted. So the moment I perform the exercise, I just feel that the energy is moving around me. I just feel it moving within me even. And with the proper intention, eventually I just feel the showers of energy. I just feel that what I intended has already happened, and I'm in that state. I have already manifested it, and I'm living it in the moment. And what I love about the alchemy flow again is that I instantly have the effect. I don't have to practice it for like a week or 10 days in order for me to finally feel it. No, it's just 20 minutes and I feel, over the moon.
Love that. It's and every, like, going through this journey, I think one of the things that you realize, that a lot of people realize as well, is everything comes back to energy, and we have full say-so on our own energy and where we put it and how we feel and where we want it to be. And I think when we realize we have that power to influence our own energy, and we don't need to let it be influenced by other people and other situations, it creates such a, I think it's kind of like lifting a weight off your shoulders, realizing, oh, okay, I don't like what's going on. I can change that. I can change the way I feel. I can change my energy, my energetic vibration. And alchemy is such a big part of that, which the whole quantum flow process. And I love what you said there is about you're bringing your intention in, and you're living it and embodying it as it's already happened. And this is where it comes into that kind of law of attraction type thing, is what you're putting out there is what you're getting back in. Is if you are not happy with the life you have, you can start living the life you want right now as if you already have it. and then that's what you start drawing in. I know it's a hard concept for a lot of people to kind of really grasp mentally, like from a logical standpoint, but it's not logical. It comes back down to feeling. It's like you said, when you start to do those practices, you feel the energy moving. You feel like you're in a much more resourceful state to live the life you want, but also to be who you're being.
Exactly. And you know, it's even in it have been spoken about even in religions, that, you know, you just get what you expect. So make sure that you expect something you actually want to manifest.
Exactly.
It's so interesting because hearing you two talking there about like the alchemy and even us talking about past life regressions and timeline and these kinds of things, when you very first started, right, that cynicism that was there a bit, that curiosity obviously led you, I think, through this journey very much. But it can be hard, like John just said there, is to logically see how did we go from feeling like rock bottom, like super burnt out, feeling purposelessness, and then suddenly talking about this and these feelings and energy and manifestation, and talking from this real strength, right? And we always talk about something called our stress awareness pyramid, and I think it's quite relevant right now. Just to connect a couple of dots, which is on a day-to-day level, when we are experiencing some of those feelings you shared at the beginning, it's very easy to want to change everything that's outside of us, right? It's very easy for us to change the country we live in, change our job, change our relationship. And when we are in that mindset, we tend to look outside for a lot of the changes. And that happens at kind of when we're experiencing stress at that life level. But underneath that, we have our lifestyle health, which is our ability to breathe and connect and know how we're feeling. And then we have that root level, which is that foundation, which is where we go and look at any unresolved emotions. We tap into that deeper connection as to what is the energy we're holding on to that perhaps is blocked. And when we start to flip our perspective for our own change and the way our life can improve from an external viewpoint to an internal one, we end up being the creators, essentially, of our own experiences. And I think that's something that can sometimes be really tricky to get your head around. Because I mean, I was like that in my own journey as well. It was like really hard for me. What was the saying, like, you know, you create your own thoughts? I mean, I would challenge that, right? This idea that you can choose how you feel in the same way that you choose the clothes that you wear. I would challenge that. There was so much resistance to that. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. And I'd love to know where you perhaps found your biggest resistance in your journey with us.
Okay, so basically it was accountability. I knew that I had to put on, you know, some effort, but I was already, as you said, burnt out. And in order to create a lasting change, you know, the lasting change that I really wanted, you guys provided me with tasks to perform, but I just wasn't into homework. But from the deep dive questionnaires, you know, you asked me to fill, you already knew that, you knew what works well with me. For example, you know, you changed the language from tasks to challenges, so I was able, you know, to cope them better. You guys also didn't, you know, overwhelm me with tasks or challenges. Actually, some of them were actually really fun to perform, like, you know, going out with my inner child. That was really fun. But mainly for a while, for a few months, it was accountability. I remember you even had the talk with me, Charlotte, that I had to do something about it. You know, don't expect someone to, you know, have a magic wand and just, you know, fix all of your problems. You will need to do the work. You will need to put the effort. You will need to be committed. There are many people, by the way, that really want to do the work, that are also committed, but they do not waive some of their daily commitments to make the time for this change. They keep their life as is and then just include coaching right in the middle of it, right in the middle of their busy life. No, it doesn't work this way. You will have to let go of several things that you can postpone or cancel. in order for you to make the space for your coaching journey, you need to be responsible of your change.
Yeah, I'm so interested that you brought that up, because that's definitely probably the thing that I remember most about your journey, is that rebellion within you, like wanting to do it but not wanting to do it, and this like internal conflict that's going on there. And I think there was a really interesting like pivot. I think we must have been probably about 3 months in, and there was this resistance, and you was really leaning into it, but it was still there, like pushing back a little bit. And then it wasn't, I don't think it's something that necessarily happened overnight. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on how that was for you, but it seemed like there was just suddenly this shift of ownership and this like, no, do you know what, I'm here and I want to be here. And you just shifted gears drastically. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Basically, it was the talk. When you had the talk with me,
The talk.
the talk, yes. It just, I just realized at that moment that, oh my God, Alya, don't add another failure to your life. The previous failure, was based on, others people's, unconscious bias, but this is you. And this, contradicts even the formula that you grew up with. So what's going on here? You're not a failure. So why did you have to hear that from Charlotte? That was the change. That was exactly the day. I remember, by the way, it was the day that a change happened overnight. Maybe I didn't show it to you because of my nature. I wasn't really show it to you. That's okay. You scolded me. But it was the talk that made me realize, no, this is not you. You're a successful you're a successful female, and you can, you know that you can do it. You don't have to hear this again from anyone else. So I just changed.
And I could definitely see like that shifting gears, and then over the following weeks it just amplified drastically. I think just your whole experience and just being even more open, and obviously doing the challenges and things like that. And just for the record, in that conversation, in the talk, I didn't call Alya a failure.
No.
Really hard scolding. It was just perhaps a bit of a reframe as to how we've been approaching it. Is that fair to say, Alya?
Yeah, yes, of course. No, because I define scolding differently. So if you change your tone with me, if you weren't, as fun as I am, then no, that is scolding to me. Why is your energy like that? I'm not used to that energy. So this is basically, it's like energetically you've scolded me.
I really love that, because we all need to have that talk, I think, at some point, and probably multiple times in our lives, if we're being honest, because I think, sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. And I think, that's one of the reasons we believe in coaching so much. We will always have a coach. We'll always have some form of accountability in our lives. It might be different people at different stages, but it's, I think, a very necessary part of continuous improvement. Don't get me wrong. We don't need to, be in it all of the time. We need to have space, and we need to obviously make sure we're, being independent. That's absolutely necessary. But I think it's really important to have that level of accountability. I think it makes a world of difference. And we've seen that with people's results as well, haven't we?
Absolutely. I think accountability is so key, because just look at kind of the rise of the internet. You can find all the information you want online. And most of it is free. You can find anything you want for free online. The question is, why are people still unhappy with where they are? It's because the lack of implementation and accountability, they just draw themselves back into their comfort zone, what they're used to. They may not like the feeling, but it's familiar and it's comfortable to them. So that accountability, I think, is so key for anyone listening and wondering, how can I get out of where I am? Is accountability. Get yourself an a coach, a friend, a buddy, someone who can help keep you accountable for what you're trying to do in life, who you're trying to be. Because I think it is so key to have that guidance. Where as human beings, we're tribal by nature. We want to be around people. We want to socialize. We want to connect. And trying to do it on your own, we know from previous experience and from other people we've worked with, is it can't be done on your own. It's very slow. even if it can, and most of the time we end up just drawing ourselves back into that comfort zone, where we're happy being miserable. Basically,
we only know what we know, right?
yeah, exactly. So I would love to know, during your journey, Alya, when was the moment you realized that it was working for you? Was there one specific moment? Was it that moment when Charlotte spoke to you, had the talk? I've had the talk before as well. Was it before that? Was it a different moment? Like, was it at different moments throughout your journey you realize, actually, this is really starting to work now? Like, it's feeling that excitement. What was it for you?
Yeah, for me, no, it wasn't the talk that made me realize that it was working. It was something different. The talk actually made me follow, the tasks and assignments, and then I saw a real result. And for me, it was definitely the increased window of tolerance. So when we experience a traumatic event or high levels of stress, our window of tolerance can become really narrow, which means that we may become easily overwhelmed or maybe disassociated in response to the triggers or the stressors. So this can basically lead to a variety of emotional and physical symptoms, including, anxiety, panic attacks, and depression and burnout. And when I stayed consistent with my tasks, such as the mindfulness meditations, the grounding exercises, and the other therapeutic techniques we just mentioned, I noticed that I was able to better tolerate stress triggers without becoming overwhelmed or disassociated. I was able to regulate my emotions and respond to triggers in a more adaptive way, which eventually, it led to improved overall well-being and a better quality of life. The second thing was increased self-awareness. I started to realize the root of my behavior and the root of my reactions, as if I was suddenly watching myself from a holistic view.
That's really, really well articulated. I think I love that actually they're the things that you've pulled out, because sometimes they're the things that we can also take for granted, right? Self-awareness is like, because we have self-awareness even when we feel rubbish. It's what we then do with that awareness that I think makes the difference. And like you said there, leaning into those techniques has obviously really, really helped that. So I'm glad to hear that's where you started to feel what was working for you. And I love that you referenced the window of tolerance, because often we don't realize we have a window of tolerance, right? We don't know that we've got a certain capacity. And we know sometimes that we feel overwhelmed, and we maybe even feel tense in our body when we feel like our stress is just stacking up so much. That's a sign that our window of tolerance is perhaps under a bit of pressure. We need to open that window. We need to essentially open up ourselves to be able to transmute that energy and to understand what's going on, and then use that level of self-awareness that you just shared, which is awesome. So what's been the biggest, most kind of exciting result you've achieved?
Well, first, I realized that, other people's opinion of me is none of my business. It's just their opinion, doesn't reflect reality. Second, I was able to understand what I enjoy doing for a living and, what gives me the fulfillment. I'm now open to new opportunities and experiences. I also have an idea of what my purpose is. I was even able to write it as a clear statement towards the end of my coaching journey. And I understand now that purpose can even evolve over time. It is not a set in stone, and it may change as I grow and evolve as a person. I just need to embrace the journey and allow myself to be flexible and adaptable.
Yeah, definitely. So that's it. It definitely so different from the beginning, from the start. Like, the question is what does your life look like now? So you've already given us an insight into your story at the beginning, about what was life before, but what's life like now with all that, all this extra knowledge and experience, and then these feelings and this openness and this adaptability? What's different?
So remember before, my work was my entire life. So basically, I just gave control of my entire life to a group of unprofessional people that judged me with their, biased mindsets, which of course had a catastrophic outcome. Now, I just took back control of my own life and became the author of my own story. This means that I still have a 9 to 5 job, but aside from that, I'm working on my independence. Because my purpose needs a lot of independence. I'm taking responsibility for my life. I'm making my own decision and shaping my own future. It means that I am not simply, a passive bystander in my life, in my own life, but an active participant who is taking action to create the life that I want to live.
Mic drop right there. That's awesome. It's so lovely having these conversations like now. Obviously we've been with you the whole way, so we've kind of seen it, and a part of me wishes sometimes that we could like almost like film the very first conversations we ever have with people, because they are worlds apart. Now obviously that would be inappropriate. But I think it's really, really a testament to how much you've put into this journey is to now where you are. Because it hasn't been easy at times. I would like to think at some points perhaps it was, and there's obviously some enjoyable parts that you've just shared with us. But I would really love for you to share, really selfishly for us, obviously I'm sure our listeners want to hear as well, but what are you most excited about next in your life?
Oh, wow. So basically, my complete independence. Now, I now have the tools not to fall back into that rabbit hole. I'm looking now forward to living my purpose in full. And what I love about my purpose is that it includes the welfare of this planet. So basically, I'm looking forward to making a positive impact, providing access as much as possible to clean water, energy, shelter, education, and medicine to everyone on Mother Earth.
You give me goosebumps, right? So anybody's listening, we're actually really picky with the people that we work with. And that might sound really, I don't know, arrogant maybe, or I don't know, odd compared to the way a lot of people do business, because it's really, really important to us that we work with people who genuinely want to make a difference some way, somehow. It doesn't have to be everything you've just mentioned. That's a tall order for anybody, and I know you're definitely not going to do that on your own. But what I love is your capacity to be able to now think about how you do that in such an efficient way. And I think obviously your professional experience is going to help you do that massively. But what role do you think your coaching journey has played in you being able to do that and to live that purpose?
First of all, yeah, I as I mentioned before, I didn't have a purpose. So my coaching journey basically allowed me to explore myself, allowed me to know what I like and what I dislike, allowed me to figure out, that what I have been doing before, it wasn't something that I wanted. This was something that the community expected from me or from anyone else. So what the coaching journey did is that it just, cleared all of these noises and just aligned me to my true purpose.
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps again.
Goosebumps on my goosebumps.
Goosebumps.
Double goosebumps.
Awesome. If anyone's listening to this and they are going, wow, it's such a powerful story from the beginning or from the start to where you are now, and they're thinking, I think I may be ready to start my own journey, but they might still be a bit on the fence. What advice would you give someone who may be thinking about starting that journey for themselves?
I would highly recommend it. I would highly recommend it if they are honest with themselves and are willing to do what it takes to create the lasting change. Remember that this is an ongoing journey and that there may be challenges and setbacks along the way, but by staying committed to your goals and staying focused on your vision, you can continue to make progress towards creating the life that you want. You just have to be committed.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really important as well, I think, for anybody listening is one, your journey might look different in terms of the process. You might go to somebody that you already know that you've been really like drawn towards. That's awesome. Like Alya said, it's like the commitment is the most important thing, not necessarily like the program or the vehicle, the people that you choose, right? And I think that's really important. And another thing there as well is just to highlight, life is not suddenly going to be perfect, right? For anybody when they go through and start their journey. We're not looking for perfection when we start on this kind of path. What we're looking for is authenticity. We're looking for that commitment, your ability to be able to adapt. Like you said there, Alya, earlier, is that window of tolerance being so open that actually, do you know what, whatever challenges can come your way, you can handle it. You've got this, right? And that's what it's all about. And it's just very stark contrast compared to how we started this conversation about that kind of if-then mentality. Like, if I do this coaching thing, then I'll feel this way, right? It's not necessarily how the journey can be, right? Sometimes the journey gets harder for a bit, then it gets easier, then it gets harder a bit, right? And then even after coaching, there's going to be challenges, but you'll have what it takes to actually be able to navigate them.
Exactly.
So, Alya, what else do you think our listeners need to know before we wrap up today?
Well, I just want them to remember the butterfly effect. The community or society that you want to live in is created with your own actions. So everything you do has a ripple effect. So choose wisely and always strive to become a better person. Your previous mistakes can be redeemed by the good that you do now.
Nice, powerful.
Good finish. Powerful finish. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such an insightful conversation, not just for us. Obviously, we know your journey, but it's still great talking about it because it's been like over a year. It's been a year since we started this journey with you, and just insightful for people, anyone listening to this, and knowing that doesn't matter what you're going through, what's happening in your life, there's always another solution. There's always another way.
These are my most favorite podcast episodes to do. I think we're like 100 and something episodes now, 160 episodes. And my favorite ones are when we have people like yourself come on and just share their journey, right? Because it's so inspiring, and it's people like you, Alya, that I truly believe are at the start of that ripple effect. Don't get me wrong, I know we're all connected, but I think it's a much stronger ripple when you really hear the truth of what somebody's been through, and when they've got the courage to actually share that. I think that has such a massive impact on our connection as community, but also to an individual's mental health. Just hearing something like this, it can be the most pivotal thing in their life, in their day. And you've provided that today. So thank you so much, not only for obviously showing up today and sharing your story, but for just being an awesome person and for allowing us to enjoy our jobs even more.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy that our paths crossed. And I wish what I'm feeling right now, your future clients will also feel and testify as well.
Thank you so much. Listen, is there anywhere that perhaps people could come and follow you? I know that you're on social media and things like that. I mean, if there's anywhere in particular you perhaps want us to signpost anyone to come and they want to continue following your journey, where can they see you?
Yes, of course. They can find me on Instagram. You guys will provide the account later on, and also on LinkedIn. Just type Alya Al Naqbi and you'll find me.
Awesome, good stuff, because we all need role models, right? And I think you're an awesome role model. So anybody's listening, go ahead, connect with Alya, and follow that journey, and hopefully be inspired more and more in the future.